And I don't want to criticize this particular thing because I understand that winning for 9 years in a row, sometimes it is just too much. And you'll see sort of teams step off a little bit when they continue to win, but it's never really been, I've never seen such a dramatic fall with Juventus, especially because the team has been regenerated. There are a lot of players there that want to make the difference, from Kulusevski to Chiesa to youngsters we mentioned who really want to come in and do something special. I think this is interesting because when Sarri arrived, there was this point where you found Bonucci speaking to him, where you found Ronaldo sort of scoffing at him and looking like he was just annoyed by everything the coach had said. And I remember Agnelli had picked up on these things. And this is one of the reasons why they decided to go for Andrea Pirlo. They thought Pirlo's name would be somebody that would unite the team, would make it all a lot more interesting, because he was this young and vibrant guy with a desire and a philosophy, and he wanted to put it all together, and they might respond to that rather than being annoyed by Maurizio Sarri. Of course, it hasn't gone that way. I don't know what is there in behind sort of the scenes, whether or not the players are happy or perhaps they're too happy. I don't know whether it's a team that needs to feel its fan base or the criticism aimed at it, because Ronaldo loves his criticism and that makes a difference. But I go back to the fact that at the end of the day, when you do have a philosophy and you are insisting on playing out from the back, when you don't really have the players to do so, when you're insisting on a philosophy that doesn't have the right men or the right personnel to make it work, I think there's been a lot of absences. So it's not like luck hasn't played a part. But in general, I would go back to the fact that the team hasn't been well built. And my worry about them finishing in top four stems from the fact that they have very big games coming up, from Milan to Inter to Atalanta, Fiorentina, which is a team they collapsed to. We'll speak about them later, but there's a lot of big games there, and I'm not entirely sure this complacent Juventus and the tactical wizardry that doesn't exist from Pirlo is really one that doesn't make you worry at night about whether or not they can indeed finish in top four.
There was, I think we're going to talk about it more later in the show, but there was an appearance on Sunday night by a former Juventus manager, Max Allegri, on Sky Calcio Club, which is a big evening show on Italian Sky Sport. And boy, it was quite some timing coming right after this defeat. But I thought there's so many interesting threads of this, which is why we're going to come back to it later. But I was thinking, one of the sort of standout lines that came out of it was this idea that you have, as a manager, two jobs, almost, the way Allegri put it. There's a Monday to Saturday manager whose job is to manage the team and deal with training. And then there's a Sunday manager who just needs to be reactive, who needs to understand how to navigate the different situations that come up in a match. And that, I think he's talked about this before, honestly. He's talked about it a lot through his time as a career. It's not something you can find in books. It's not something that's written down. It's something that you have to just be able to do, is be instinctive and react. And look, there's a bit of self-aggrandizement in there about his own ability, and that's what all managers are going to do. But I do think the thing that keeps standing out with this Juventus team when they do run into difficulty is Pirlo doesn't have the and it's not just instinct. Managers aren't born with these things. It's experience as well. He doesn't have the ability to pull rabbits out of hats. And sometimes that's what you need to do. Sometimes that makes it sound like it's harder than it should be, actually, against a team like Benevento. You just need to be able to do something smart. And it feels like he doesn't have that. And that is making the difference in the end in these situations. As to the top four thing, because I don't think I've actually said anything about that yet. I think it's pretty open now. I still expect Juventus to get in. As I said earlier, their results since the start of this year have actually been pretty good overall. And I think losing sight of that because of one embarrassing defeat is a bit silly. But it feels like this was the weekend for me when the title really did stop being the thing that you were thinking about with this club. And the competition for those top four positions is now, it's really tight. Napoli are finding some form. Atalanta have never really let up from the form they've had. Lazio are there. Roma are dropping, but they're still part of that conversation. It's going to be a down to the wire situation, and Juventus need to be attentive to it, because missing out on the title after 9 years, it's a big story, but it's not a catastrophe for who you are as a club. Dropping out of the Champions League, that's a pretty major blow to your identity.
At least Juve still has Inter to play, and I know there's a 10-point gap. And look, I think it'll be a bigger shock if Juve don't get into the top 4 than it was Benevento winning at Juve, which was a huge shock.
If Juventus don't make the big top 4, that will be the biggest story in Italian football in a very long time.
Massive. But I just think, I don't think Juve will win the title now, but there's still something that I wouldn't rule them out in having a say, because when you're 10 points behind, still having to play Inter, they have one thing that none of the other clubs that are competing against them has, and that's the experience of winning it over 9 years.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.